Hey, this is Joe from Stork's Plows. Today we're going to do some wiring. Today we have a 2020 Ford F350. We're running a Fleet Flex system on it with halogen lights. First thing you really want to do, once you get your grill out and your headlights out and make sure you have room to spare, you want to run your power cable and your control cable first because they're usually the hardest of the two. You want to run the power cable and control cable along other wiring harnesses so you can wire tie them and keep them away from any kind of moving objects and heat objects where the heat won't get to them. The hardest part about running your control cable is trying to get it to the inside of the truck. You want to look for an easy access spot, which is usually a rubber grommet in the firewall, or you may have to drill a hole in some trucks. If you're going through a rubber grommet, just be careful that you don't poke no other wires in your wire harnesses because they do a lot of damage. From there, you want to run your control cable inside and hook up your controller and find a power source for your red wire that's key on access only. You don't want to run that power all the time because it'll drain your battery. Certain trucks and cars or vehicles have certain places that recommend where they want to get plugged into. When you run your control harness inside, you're going to need a power source for your accessory wire. And Ford recommends this loop right next to your fuse box on the right kick panel. There's a green wire with an orange stripe in it. And they recommend hooking up to that wire only. They really don't want you tapping in the fuses. If you can't access that wire, then there's wires out front that go to your auxiliary switches, and that's basically what Ford recommends. Other cars usually run your fuse box, or there's other dead end wires throughout the trucks. Your best bet is look up your vehicle and look up an upfitter switch and see what GM, Ford, or Dodge recommends. Your battery, you want to hook directly to the battery. You don't want to hook nothing to the ground unless vehicle specific says so, as GM has a ground stud on their firewall that they want you to hook directly to instead of the battery. Today we're working on a Ford, so we're going right to the battery. On your control cable, there's two 4-pin plugs. So you want to make sure that you don't mix. Can you see them in here? Mm-hmm. You don't want to mix these two up. This one says battery. That has to go to your battery cable. This one goes to your light harness when you put your light harness in. The difference you can tell is this one has a loom around it and it says battery. This one breaks out of the harness and don't have a loom around it. That goes to your lights. Okay, once you get your control cable and your battery cable run, the next thing you do is you run your light harness and your 11-pin wiring. Your light harness, most of them are fairly simple plug and play anymore, but some of your older trucks you're going to have to plug into the back of the headlight and tap in wires into your turn signal and your parking light. Always make sure you have your parking light wire connected because that's what powers your whole plow. If your parking light wire isn't connected, you won't have a plow. Okay, while running a Ford 2021 and newer, they have this plug right here. If you take this bracket that bolts right here off, you can easily get to the plug that plugs into your light harness. The Dodge, they have a wire harness under the fuse panel. GM, you're still plugging into the back of some of the headlights. but they're fairly simple nowadays. It's not as hard as it used to be. And like I said, you always want to run your wiring away from hot stuff and away from moving objects so that nothing cuts into it or it overheats it. And if you plug it into any kind of plug, you always want to make sure there's dielectric grease on it. When you get your power cable and control cable, there's a tube of grease in there. Make sure you grease every plug. It protects it throughout the years. Okay. Um, Once you run your harness and all and you get your module, this is the easiest place we found to mount the module. It fits snugly beside the air cleaner and it stays cool and don't get overheated. Basically, everybody has their own way to run wiring and there's no set way to do it. Just try and keep it away from heat and moving objects is what we tell you. And basically that's your Fleet Flex system on a Ford F-250.